Okay, so can you delete pages with multiple page receipt? Yeah, so if you do have like um, if you were to have a receipt and you did both front and back at the same time and one side was blank, you can go in there that when you come over on the preview window of your receipt, if you push Control T as in Tom, it looks like maybe they changed that up a little bit. They don't show the different pages here in a thumbnail preview. But if you do come in here, you can come in and delete just that one single page. So if you come in, you hit the X, you can say, "Are you sure you want to delete the selected pages?" And we say yes, and now we deleted that second page. So you can go in and delete other pages. It's just that when you're coming in and capturing some of that, you could wait or you can do it afterwards. It depends on how you want to do things inside of your scanner profile. For instance, if you set up a receipt profile and you wanted to do that, you could also have it so that it removes blank pages if you wanted to. It just depends on what your preference is. So good question though. Okay, if the scanner creates the text level PDF from scan, does that cause the OCR receipts to have a problem? It should not have a problem there at all. It should just our system is going to use its own OCR system because we've kind of tweaked some things towards receipts. So we shouldn't have any text level issues on the PDF from a scan that's causing that. So that shouldn't be a problem. There's a question here on whether or not we're having a plan to ever recognize logos. Many vendors don't have their names on the receipt. We are looking into some of that technology. We don't know what the timeline is going to be there, and logos change, and so it's kind of hard sometimes on that side of things. But at some point, we will probably look at that and try and recognize logos. But sometimes the quality of a receipt is not that great. I think we all recognize the fact that receipts in most cases are not the greatest quality, especially if we don't do something with them right away. If they just sit there in an envelope for a long time, sometimes they fade, and it's just the type of ink and paper that they use. So the faster we can get that captured, and that's one of the reasons why I also like to snap the picture using an app, because of the fact that when we're coming in and doing that, I will still keep a copy of that receipt and I will bring it back, and then I determine, oh, you know what, that picture was terrible, and I might scan it in. But for the most part, I am trying to capture that right away, so that the quality of that document on the paper and the ink are top quality right at the beginning. So, just a thought on that side of things. Um, there's a question here on whether or not you can actually append invoices to receipts. So you can. In fact, if you come up here, you can right click and you can say that you want to add a blank receipt. Well, that's blank receipt, but you can append a file to a receipt. Sometimes, for instance, sometimes I forget and I lost my receipt, right? And so one thing that you can do is you can come in here and say add a blank receipt. And so this is where I'll come in and I might just say nothing on here. I can also come in and I can type some text. So if I make this a little bit bigger, here's some text. And I can come in and say, okay, here's the text that I want to use. And so we'll come in now and say, lost Burger King receipt, right? And then I can come in, hit enter here. Oh, it's not letting me grab that now. Something went wrong there. Okay, there we go. Lost, Burger King receipt. Can't type when everybody's watching me, right? So now you can come in, you can add a blank receipt, for instance, and then you can add all your information. So if you're looking at your credit card statement or something like that, you could come in there and do that too. But you can come in and also just right click and append a file to that receipt. So for instance, you might have an invoice that pertains to that receipt and you want those to be together. You could come in and do that too. Okay, good question. Can you move receipts from one existing box to a new box? Yes. So you can actually come in and you can actually come in here and say right click, and then you can say move receipt. We're going to pop up a little window for you, and then it's going to come up and it's just going to say, hey, you're moving the receipt from the 2021 personal and you're moving it over to the QBO. Now in this case we only had 2 boxes, so it automatically selected QBO because of process of elimination. If you had another one, then it's going to also come in there too. You'll also see that with the integration, it comes up and it says allows you to post to QuickBooks Online. So I can come in and do that. I can also include the receipt as an attachment inside of QuickBooks Online. And so you can come in there and do that and match everything up. Okay, you'll see here, for instance, the categories are different inside of my personal cabinet versus the QuickBooks Online. And so food and beverage, like it might not be there, like, or here's fuel. So you can kind of come in and match some of those things up for you. You can also come in, for instance, you can delete the original receipt after the successful move, so it's not in both locations. So people can do that too. Okay, so that's another way that you can move receipts. Another thing there that it just reminded me of is that there was a question, and in fact someone just typed it in, is what happens when I create the new box for the new year. So for instance, if we're coming in and we're going to create a 2022 personal, I don't want to have to put in all those categories and all of those payees over again. And so what you're going to be able to do is you can right click on the existing box, come down here and say clone box, and then we can come in here and call this 2022 personal. And when we come in, we click OK. What that's going to do for us is that all of our lists inside of the new one will be existing. So if we come up here and we click on payees, we see that Chevron's still there, Costco's there, Delta, and Shake Shack. Okay, and so everything that you created in one box can also then be in the new box as you create it. Anytime that you create a box, if you want all those categories and all those lists to be automatically populated and you don't want to have to do that all over again, just easily clone the box. It doesn't have to be 2022. You can come in here and say clone box and say, business, right? And now the business one, if we come up here into lists, we see the same information. Okay, good question. There's a question here on whether or not you can just post to QuickBooks Pro only at the end of the month. Like if you wanted to do that, and you'd still have to go into each one of those receipts and then say to post, but you could run your report for that month and then be able to post all those receipts to QuickBooks Online. Hopefully that answers that question. Will an email be sent to us telling us when this is available to view online? Yeah, so the same way that we just notified you on the to come join this training, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to just send out an email and it'll have a link to YouTube to be able to see that. So good question. Can I move some receipts from, say, 2020 to 2021? So yes, again, if you just come in and you select the receipt that you want to move, you'll be able to come in and do that. So here's our 2021. If I wanted to move this receipt over, we're going to come in and we're going to select our 2022 personal, right? And then you'll see that all the information, in this case, like all the categories were the same and everything. So all the fields were already pre-populated, where when we chose QuickBooks Online, the categories and everything were different. And so in this case, we're just going to go ahead and click OK. You'll see that now disappears out of my 2021. And now if we come over to 2022, it is now over there. So good question. Once the receipt is scanned and is moved from inbox to receipts, will it keep the scanned images associated with the entry, or does that only keep the info but not the image? It keeps both. In fact, you're going to find here, one of the things I'm going to point out here, for instance, let's come into our documents and my receipts, and we'll come into 2020. What you're going to see is inside of here, this is our Shake Shack receipt. Now you're going to notice that it does not say Shake Shack receipt or anything like that at all. It's just a number. That number is associated to a database that is stored right here in this little file, this database file. So we don't want to come in and change. Like if you come in there and you're like, hey, how come that doesn't show up as Shake Shack? it shows up as a number. That's not what I want. If you change that number, it breaks it inside of receipts. It won't be able to find that document. Okay, and so our database that is here, this has all of your entry information that you have, and it associates that entry information to this document number. And so that's how that works. And so if basically all the files are stored here and everything is associated together. So if you move that 2927242 file somewhere else, it's not going to find it, and it won't be able to display the image. But it's kind of linked together in the database. So that's a great question. Okay, so there's a lot of questions coming in here. So I know for sake of time, there are some of you that are going to need to leave. Okay. So there's a question here on whether or not a report can span multiple boxes, like let's say a business trip that was, 12/25 to January 5th and covers two boxes, 2020 and 2021. So honestly, in this particular question, the way that I do this is in this particular case, when my business trip started on, in 2020 and it went into 2021, all those 2021 receipts are in the 2020. Only because of the fact for me, I'm looking at it in the sense that it was my business trip. That's how I do it. I guess it's personal preference. Right now, reports do not span multiple boxes. It just spans the box that you want, that you're doing the one on. I know that is one of the things that is on our list of enhancement requests, but it is not something that is there right now. Question here is whether or not why some companies like Costco will not appear after it's analyzed. The receipt could even be very pristine. Most of the time, it's because Costco. So we talked a little bit about logos. Costco does not have Costco in on the receipt itself. In fact, I have a Costco receipt right here, and nowhere else on the whole receipt does it have the word Costco. And so they only have it as a logo. And sometimes when a company will go in and italicize or do something weird with their logo, it's really hard to read. OCR has a hard time reading that. So it's not something that we can adjust on some of those where Costco doesn't have the word Costco anywhere else in the receipt at all. Like a lot of times a receipt will say www.costco.com, and we'll read that and we'll say, oh, there's Costco, right? But unfortunately, like Costco doesn't even have that on their receipt here either. And so that's just something with some vendors or payees that you're paying are not going to be able to be recognized, and it's kind of unfortunate, especially like we go to Costco all the time, and I have those receipts all the time here, and I have to do that all at once. So unfortunately, that's just the case with Costco. But and sometimes if the actual name of the company is not there on the receipt, it's only the logo. So sorry about that. Well, and again, we're looking at ways that we can manage that a little bit. Like, can we import a bunch of logos into our database and make it so that we recognize those databases and associate that logo to the file or the payee name? So something that we're looking at for sure. Okay, so here's another question, and I really want to answer this one because it is a very, very common one, and that is when your receipt is really long. Not that ever happens, right? Nobody ever scans in long receipts. So here, if you're using a Canon scanner, I can't speak to Fujitsu here, and I know this isn't necessarily a really long receipt here that I'm about to scan in, but it is longer than what we were scanning in before. This is something that I like to do here. In fact, I'm going to come back to my normal default inbox here. So when we come in and we click on scan, one thing that you have the ability to do with the Canon scanner and other scanners as well, but I just know because my scanner that I have here on my desk is actually it's a Canon, and it's a M260, just like Valerie was asking about here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to click on scan using the scanner dialog. And what that does is when I come in and I click on start scan, it's going to open up a window for me. Of course, it brings it to my default screen. And this is something that I really like to do. There's a setting here on page size. And one of the things that I do with page size is I match the original size. Now, sometimes receipts are incredibly long, and there is a certain point where it won't do it, right? But inside of this setting, if you come in and use the scanner dialog, once you use it once, it remembers that setting. Okay, and so for me personally, I do this with all of my scans. Anything that I scan in, it's a default for me. It's already set up. As I come in and I say, most of the time I'll have this actually be like black and white or grayscale. It just depends on that aspect. But this page size is always set to match original size. And then that way I can come in and say, yeah, let's go ahead and scan that. That'll scan my really long receipt. You heard all the crinkling going on. And you'll see here, you can kind of see that it is a much longer receipt in that sense. And this is just another example where we can come in, we can add the fresh market date, or the category, or the name of the payee. I usually like to have this a little bit bigger so that I can come in and look a little closer. But it recognizes my date here as well and the amount and everything like that, and I can now come in and just click OK, and it'll add everything on there. But that's the way I scan long receipts. So hopefully that helps you out. But yes, like Fujitsu ScanSnap, if you press and hold the blue button for about 5 seconds, it'll let you scan in extra long receipts as well. So that's one thing there. I do have a Fujitsu ScanSnap here at my home as well, and I do like to use that scanner sometimes to scan in my receipts. And most of the time, I don't even have to hold that. Like, I've scanned in some really long receipts with my ScanSnap, and I don't even have to hold anything on the button. But that is another shortcut that I have read about. So thanks for bringing that up, Francisco. Okay, so another question here right now is, and this is perfect time since we already have this up, is across from the receipt total, it has an add line. So in the case that maybe you have multiple line items that you have. So let's say, for instance, I bought some office supplies, but I also bought some groceries. And so if you want to add that, you can come up here and click on add line. And this is where you can come in and you can put in your, you can estimate what your sales tax probably was. You can put in what your amount was there. So we'll come in here now and say this was $14.44. And we can say this is the category, that it's food and beverage, but this one here was groceries. And so you can come in and you can add multiple line items there. So very good question. And then when it does come in here, I'm going to show this here too. Let's see. What did I do wrong here? It's just not showing up yet. So it didn't show up here for some reason, but usually what happens is that it'll show multiple line items inside of here. So you'll see, and it'll kind of like gray out one, and that'll just show you that it's one receipt, but there's multiple line items. And so I'll have to test that out. It might be just a bug that we're experiencing right now, something that I don't use line items very often, so I just don't test that very often. So sorry about that. But yeah, that's typically how that would work. Okay, so we're gonna answer a few more questions here for the next 3 minutes, and then we're gonna wrap up. If I didn't answer your question, I will get a list of all those questions from the webinar software, and then I can go ahead and answer some of those questions for everybody and respond back to you on that. So just don't be too frustrated if I didn't answer your question for you. There is a question here on whether or not we have a guide that, what's been updated to show the new updates. Typically there is something that you can go and if you come up here to the help and let's say you go to check for updates, one of the things that you're going to find is that when it comes in and opens up our website, it will come in here, DMS, receipts, and automate. You can come in and say, view the chain log or the change log, and it'll come in and it'll tell you everything that has been changed in like the recent logs that are there. We are missing one right now. We haven't put the latest changes up there, but this one here should have that receipt change where it has the inbox on the left hand side versus, or the up on the top versus left, or maybe it might have been something that we missed on that. So, but that is somewhere that you can go in and see all the things that have changed. We do try and kind of sort those by FileCenter DMS and receipts and then automate, so that you don't have to like scroll through everything. You can kind of quickly see some of the things that are there. Just to kind of, as I just thinking of time wise, one thing that I do want to just mention here is that everyone here should have received an invitation, or will be receiving an invitation to our FileCenter receipts community. So if you come in and you get that receipt or that invitation, you'll actually find in here, obviously this will look a little different than yours just because I manage this whole account, but I come in and I'll make announcements in here. Like, so here I told everyone that had purchased the software that probably didn't get the invitation to join the webinar. I sent that here. I will also post all the recordings here inside of the Facebook group. So if you are part of Facebook and you would like to join that group and you haven't received an invitation, you can go ahead and send me an email. My email is kevin@filecenterdms.com, but you can send me an email and I'm happy to be able to get you into the group. I'll send the invitation, and so that will allow you to be able to join the group, and we'll just approve that. But you'll see here that, you know, like I come in, I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving or Independence Day and things like that, but people come in and ask questions, and we try and get those answered as quickly as we can. Sometimes Facebook is kind of frustrating and they don't notify me when somebody posts a question, but I'll come in once a week and I'll look through everything too and make sure everything has been answered. But we do try and answer all those questions. And then our user base is really awesome, and they also jump in and they say, hey, this is how I do it, or this is how I did a workaround until they got something fixed. And so that's something that you can do, and you can join that group. So with that though, we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap up here. We're going to go ahead and, again, we're going to have all of this information will get published out onto YouTube, so you can come in and you can look there. And there's also going to be some other things that are going to be coming, and so we'll make announcements there too, with YouTube and everything like that. So we'll make sure to make you guys all aware of all the changes that are being made. But I just want to say thanks for attending. I know that this has gone over about 30 minutes, but hopefully it was very helpful and that you guys were able to learn. And if you're getting started, or you're trying to get started again, or you're just needing a refresher, I hope that it was of help to you. If you do have any questions though, feel free to reach out to me. Send me a quick email. You can also send it to training@filecenterdms.com. That'll come directly to me, and I'll make sure to answer those questions for you. I'll look forward to catching everyone though on the next webinar. Have a great day.